Hey, so I remember back in the early '90s when I started coming up in the world of sales leadership, right? I was never in a position where I was actually qualified for any job I ever applied for. And as I look back on my career, that's 100% absolutely the truth. And there's going to be some people who are saying, Arnie, I still know you're not qualified for the job that you're currently in. And there would probably be some truth to that. I mean, I've never been the chief sales officer of a company before. So when I got this job, I certainly wasn't qualified for it because I had no reference points for it. I had no experience in it. But there has never been a job ever. When I got my first sales job, I certainly wasn't qualified for commission sales. I had done transactional selling in retail stores and malls, but I was not qualified to sell a high-end product, and I didn't know selling techniques. I learned that as I went along. And when I got into regional management, I didn't know anything about regional management. I didn't know how to do that. I had to learn that as I went along. So I had to actually convince people that I was qualified to do the job that they were hiring me for. And I had to convince them in such a way that gave me the maximum amount of income provided, right? So I actually had to create almost an illusion that I was already qualified for the job that I was coming into. Now, the funny thing about that is that a lot of the people that who worked for me, the sales organization, as I got into leadership, the sales organization they had a standing joke, and the joke was this: well, we know Arnie's great in sales because the greatest sale he ever made was convincing the owners of this company that he should be in the position that he's in. And that was always the joke, that was the sale. The sale, the Arnie Cap sale of the century was selling the owners or the hiring executive that I was qualified for the position that they were hiring for. And the funny thing was that they were kind of right. They were kind of right. I'll give you an example. Back in the late 90s, I was recruited to be the VP of Training and Development for David's Bridal. Now, David's Bridal was a kind of a startup company at this point. They were starting to build their infrastructure and build their brand, and they needed a head of training. Now, somebody got in front of me and gave them my name as a reference point and gave me enough street cred going into this thing that I was able to convince them that I should be hired in as a vice president. Now, I had never been a vice president before, and I had never run a training division before. So just think about that for a second. I had never been an executive level player in any company, and I was interviewing for a position that I had no experience in. And it was let me just tell you, it was a substantial income that they were investing in me. So I get into this job, and the senior vice president of human resources comes to me. His name is Fred Postel, and he says, Arnie, I'm probably in the job about a week. And he goes, Arnie, I'm going to need a white paper from you on your 1999 business plan. And I looked at him and I said, gee, Fred, white paper, business plan, that's really not my thing. I'm really more of a platform training guy. I'm not a training executive kind of thing. Like I would want to have somebody on my team who could do that for me. And his response to me was, well, then I think I hired the wrong guy. Now, if you can imagine how my heart just dropped, and I had a choice at that point. I had a choice: cave or conquer. I could cave in to what just happened at that point. I had finally been revealed. I had been found out. Somebody asked the right question early on enough to reveal that I did not belong in the position that they had hired me for. So I could cave or I could conquer. So I looked at Fred and I said, Fred, hang on a second. Just tell me where the business plan is from last year. Just tell me where it is and I'll get you what you need. So he directed me to the finance office, a guy named Gary Walker at David's. And Gary gave me the business plan from the previous year. It was a book about this thick with all of the department business plans in it. I read it cover to cover a couple of times. And I sat down and I wrote a business plan. And I had to do it. I had to do it. There was no caving. There was no going back. There was no, oh my gosh, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I've been found out, I'm really nothing more than just a big bag of bones without any real capacity. Like, I did not have the time to wallow in any self-pity. I didn't have the time to create excuses. I didn't have time to deflect. I didn't even have time to go looking for another job to try to squirm my way out of this thing. I had to conquer. And so I went immediately into where are the business plans. I read them and I replicated a business plan. So one of the reasons why I'm telling you this story is because the T in the acronym created from scratch, the T is training. And the idea, the notion that you never, ever stop being in a position where you are honing and refining and improving your skill sets. And when you get to a point where you believe that in your current role, you no longer have to do honing or refining or improving or developing, and you're just in a process of rinse and repeat, then you're where your known skill sets are going to take you. But for me, I always wanted to keep going. I always wanted to see where was the next thing for me. How far could I take this? Now, there's a phrase out there called "fake it till you make it." And there's a lot of credibility behind a lot of the content and insights behind that phrase. I prefer to use the phrase behave as if. And the reason I don't like fake it till you make it is because I don't like the idea that you have to fake things. Like, fake just to me feels like a lie, okay? I prefer to say behave as if you have already gotten the role and the only thing you need to do is refine and hone and train your skill sets to now reach the capacity that is expected of you, right? So hone, train, and refine your skill sets so that you have reached the expected capacity of the position you were hired for. So this video's topic is training, and training is all about behaving in a manner that you aspire to. Behave in a manner that you aspire to. And I promise you, if you're willing to take the risk and caving in is not an option, then you can put yourself out there and behave in a manner as if you already operate that level. And then when nobody is looking, study like freaking crazy and learn what you need to learn in order to get to that level. I'm Arnie Cap, and that's what I was thinking.